Now, we have 20 minutes, a little over 20 minutes, so I don't think we have time to go down systematically like before. These questions are somewhat related. So let's be a bit chaotic at this point. Why not? You can choose to answer any of these questions you want. Be brief, and I would give priority to those who did not intervene in the first session during the facilitated audience discussion. So who would like to raise their hand and get us going? Joji, thank you. And please.
I'm George Carino. I work with the Forest Peoples Program. In fact, in countries, there are multiple opportunities for countries' governments to engage with community-based organizations, indigenous peoples' organizations on these issues, whether they're under the climate discussions, whether it's developing the national biodiversity strategies and action plans, or sustainable development. So the fact that we're integrating farms and forests means that, in fact, there are multiple opportunities and policy arenas to hold these discussions. So those opportunities are many and are not, in fact, absent. What is important is to realize that it will be very hard, actually, to make progress without directly involving the organizations of farmers, forest producers, and indigenous peoples' organizations. So that essential commitment to always include them in these discussions means that we can take them forward in multiple policy arenas inside the country. And likewise, the indigenous organizations and the community-based organizations, I think they're quite opportunistic and actually open to all of those opportunities, so long as the doors are open and we can encourage this kind of engagements. Thank you.
Thank you, Joji. Would anyone else like to intervene at this point? Yes, please, Manuel.
Bueno, yo creo que una de las formas en donde las organizaciones pueden establecer una buena alianza con el gobierno es, primero, que el gobierno reconozca el rol y la importancia de la organización de productores. Segundo, que que la organización de productores también le pueda brindar servicios al mismo gobierno en ciertos temas o en la ejecución de ciertos programas de obtención de información, etcétera. Y la tercera, contar con una legislación en donde se reconozca la importancia y la necesidad de contar con las organizaciones de productores. En la parte de tener una ley de organizaciones en un país, da la certeza jurídica de que esas organizaciones estarán ahí por el resto del tiempo. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Manuel. May I invite other interventions? Yes, August, I was waiting for you to raise your hand. Thank you.
Thanks, August Temu. It's very interesting to see the different models of development in this area. When you look at what Sweden started from, it gives you the impression that the mother of invention is scarcity, or scarcity is the mother of invention. Because innovation, because...
Sorry, August, is the microphone on?
Yes, it is on. Oh, closer, okay. Okay, I said, okay, shall I start again? Okay, what I said is that it's very interesting to see the different models used in the different countries, because they are not quite the same, and yet they end up more or less in the same structure of government and producer organization relationship. Those end up with policy, the right policies that support the production and so on. But the beginning is different for many of the countries. And it's in the case of Sweden, you see like scarcity or lack of market, for example, was a big problem from the very beginning. It was useless product, these trees and so on, and then they build up, and suddenly it's such an important product and so on. Elsewhere, you look like in Kenya. In the case of Kenya, it was empty landscape, basically 2% forest cover, which meant that trees were already a problem. Already 70% of the timber used in the Mount Kenya region actually came from farm forests, but they were not organized. So now they begin to organize themselves. So it's a very interesting thing. And yet the rest of the landscape, which has no forest cover or tree cover, government institutes a policy that requires every single farm to have at least 10% forest cover. Now, this is a case where government is taking the initiative and people are grabbing it and running away with that. So, in fact, the people did not initially like the policy. But after a while, they realized it was money-making. The only difficulty we run into then in Kenya is that they grow eucalyptus. Because it is fast-growing, it is whatever, has immediate market with the power company, and that's a big challenge. So you have to go back and say, wait a minute, that government policy is great, but we should have said which species, how to control that. So you can see here an initiative that is basically positive, but ends up with a challenge that could be a huge problem for the country. So now we go back and do that. So I think the kind of synergistic and the kind of flow into government and out of government into local communities and so on are very interesting dynamics that we have to learn very carefully. And not every policy is necessarily good. There are weaknesses in the policies that only appear after implementation. I don't think any government ever imagined people rush to one species. So this is the kind of challenge we face. I would say that that kind of dynamic movement between producer organization or associations and so on, and policymakers and decision makers is huge, and very interesting, and good to monitor that too. What does it mean exactly in the development?
Thank you very much, Professor Temu, for those very good insights. We have the two gentlemen on that side, please.
Hello, I've already spoken, so this is it's a cheat, but it's only a question. I was struck by the Swedish presentation in which the land area given to companies was restricted to 25%, with the rest of the country being given to communities and smallholders. And what the question that went in my mind was, usually governments are concerned by revenue generation, and big business brings tax revenues to government. How did the smallholders make the case to the government that the revenues from this long-term giving over of a large area to communities and smallholders would recompense the government? How was that argument made?
Could you gentlemen give a quick answer to that before we move back to Chris for his intervention?
Well, that was a question for the government, but I can try to. Well, I really can't say, but the truth is that by allowing local people to gain money to harvest, you know, a farmer is not a capitalist. He is not only cutting. He knows if you want to harvest, you also have to sow and plant and manage, and then you will harvest again. So the driver of this very, very nice forest development that we have had, by giving land to farmers, is that from the point that we were harvesting, we wanted to harvest again, but we wanted to harvest more. So you are planting more trees than you once harvest, provided you are absolutely sure that it's your family that will harvest the trees. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. So this, there must have been some nice politicians at the time who came from a farmer environment, who understood this, the potential, the great potential that local people wants to harvest. And it's very difficult sometimes to understand that it is the axe that has provided more forest in the Swedish country. Thank you.
Just a small reaction. I also think that when the government once set that cap of 25%, when the government set that cap of 25%, they realized that there was some kind of overexploitation of the companies to the forest owners. And the idea from the beginning from the government side was that we were giving land to the small holders to be able to have occupation over the whole year. And now they saw that this was not done properly. So that was also a reason why they reacted as they did.
Could you please use the microphone for translation?
Sorry, I just have to clarify. I'm Margareta, I'm also from Sweden. That the state forest was privatized hundreds of years, or 100 years before that law was created. And that was, as you said, a reaction to the large-scale acquisitions of the Swedish forest, that a big parts of the northern Sweden was captured by big corporations. So it's a very interesting example, actually.
Thank you for that additional information. Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Peter Kronkleton from the Center for International Forestry Research. An example for question 3. In many countries in the tropics, you find that the forest regulations are designed for industrial scale management of large old-growth forests. And many smallholders and communities have forests that are quite different. They're often smallholders with fragmented mosaics of secondary forests or forest patches. And they manage much different products. They're managing fast-growing timber coming out of managed fallows, or products coming out of agroforestry systems, or even plantations. But because they're forest products, they're classified as these restricted products that creates bottlenecks and doesn't allow these actors a level playing field. They often can't get legal authorization to take their products to markets, and so then negotiate in a black market under unfair conditions. But there are some examples. I think in the state of Amapá in Brazil, a case where farmers were managing capirona out of secondary fallows in flooded forests, and they were able to reclassify them as tree crops. So by reclassifying them, they no longer fell underneath Brazil's forestry law, and farmers could market these poles. Basically, they were marketing poles for construction in urban areas. They were able to transport these logs with no more restrictions than they would if they were marketing bananas. And they were able to do that because of these types of timber don't appear in the old growth, or they're not common in the old growth forests that are the target of the normal forestry regulations. In Peru, a similar process is beginning to take place as wood coming out of secondary forest is becoming much more important, and producer organizations are starting to protest the often arbitrary confiscation of their wood or their inability to market their wood freely to others. So, thank you.
Thank you for those excellent examples, sir. Okay, I think we have time for 2 more, if we're quick. Herman, and then back here to Robert.
Well, my name is Herman Savnay. I'm from Tropobos International. A recent study we did gives a good response to question 2. What is the most practical step countries can take and governments can take? I think that is go and see in the field what is really happening on the ground, because what we see, a lot of policies are made for them and not with them. And that ends up in all kinds of requirements for management plans and designing financing mechanisms which are not tailor-made. And I think we should learn also much more what is already there functioning, often in a more informal setting, but it has a rationale, and it is good to know the rationale and the reasoning of the functioning as it is. and I think that is very much bypassed. So I would say governments take also time, and that you engage with the communities to develop your instruments and your business models with them.
Thank you very, very much, Herman. That's an excellent practical step and suggestion. And you will volunteer to organize some of these study tours, right? For them. So. Okay. As is our tradition now, we'll let Robert have the last.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to touch on one in terms of what is needed for the forest and farm producers to engage in a constructive process with government. One of the things I think that will work well is sometimes the way we think about the government, the way the government see us is sometimes different. So we need to go into each other's word and begin to see what is working and begin to appreciate each other the way each other are positioned and respecting each other, because like us in Liberia, to get us working with the government to this point where we are included on all of the National Steering Committee and getting some legislation, it has not been an easy ride. I mean, it's a lot of dialogue. It comes to a place that we as producers, organizations need to respect the government and understand they are the government need to respect us as producers. And one of the things we have been able to do over the time was to continue to engage them consistently. We have not been weak about it, because sometimes you go, they turn you down, the doors are shut, the appointments are not respected, but we took advantage of it and continue to follow up on those issues to the point that today we have a good collaboration between us and the government in terms of engagement, and we can get to them at any point in time, to the point that I can even use an SMS message to talk to a minister just in a day, and I walk into a minister's office. It's not normal. I'm telling you serious. I can use an SMS to get to a minister in Liberia and just walk in without pre-booking or pre-appointment. That is not normal. So that can tell you that's how far we have gone with the engagement and the understanding, because initially they were afraid, but now they come to understand that, look, now that we are unique in our own office and they are unique in their area, and respecting us will just give another big opportunity for everyone to just have a buy-in. In terms of the practical examples, in terms of what will happen if we have the benefits for the enabling environment for POs, I think at the end of the day, when they are supported, it helps everyone. I mean, because there is a situation where we are comfortable as producers organizations. We are free to do our work, free to make our decision. People don't need to force us into a strict jacket because of anything. But I mean, everyone is safe, everyone is protected. I can come over to you, you can come over to me. So, I mean, it goes beyond that to the point that right now we are advocating for certain ministries to get certain budgetary allocations. I mean, can you imagine that how far we have gone, because they do need us. I mean, some of them you can't get anything. So that's how things work. So I want to just appreciate all those speakers. Thank you.